This is a clip from an earlier live stream. I know you're going to like it, so the link to the full video is down below. Check it out. I'll see you over there.
A lot of that is what public figures have to do to establish that the defendant is willfully disregarding the truth and recklessly doing so, and they can be held liable for defamation. So that's a very long-winded answer. It's very complex for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. Since we're going long-winded, go ahead and put your Constitution hat on.
Okay.
And real quick, First Amendment. Are we slipping into some murky waters with freedom of speech? Like, I have the freedom to say something about Nick, but at what point do I get into the point where now Nick can sue me because what I said freely slandered him, or what I said freely hurt his feelings, or my opinion contradicted what he wanted? At what point do we get, because it seems like we're on a thin line.
Yeah, it's very difficult. In First Amendment law, you can take an entire class on this in law school, quite frankly.
Okay.
Generally, as you pointed out, the First Amendment protects the freedom of speech. Our society kind of is founded upon speaking your political opinion and having that freedom of speech to question governmental authorities or private authorities, and you name it. Where does it cross the line is always an interesting question, because at the end of the day, free speech is not absolute. The First Amendment is not absolute. When it comes to, I can't shout fire in a crowded theater. I would be causing an emergency. I could be arrested for that. Could I then plead as a defense? Well, you violated my First Amendment. I should have the right to shout fire in a movie theater. That's not very reasonable. And we have to have some caveats to like have a functioning society, or else we might not have functioning movie theaters because people could be alarmed on these events. And so we have to take that type of logic where the First Amendment is not absolute, in the same way we extend it to emergency situations. Well, there's also things like commercial speech. What if there's an advertiser for a product who says false things about the product that aren't actually true? Should we protect against that? And if we prosecute it or, file a lawsuit against it, can he just say, well, this is freedom of speech? No, you're lying about a commercial product, and you should be telling the truth about your commercial product. So again, that's just an example of commercial speech also has to be truthful. And when it comes to reputational protection, a lot of us in society, if we're not, very property people and we don't have like a ton of wealth or assets, we depend on our reputation for our livelihood and having a good name. And so we want to protect these types of reputations for people. And so what if somebody just starts, says, hey, this person came up on the news, or I want to, slander or libel this, treat liably this person in any way. How do we protect against that? And so it's a when it comes to defamation law, trying to draw where does the First Amendment go, that's probably a more difficult situation than the emergency or commercial speech ones I mentioned. But ultimately, I think we would all maybe agree we would want to protect reputational harm. So that's, I don't know if I answered your question directly on that.
No, you absolutely did. And it kind of led into the last question. Is there a path for Erica TPUSA or any other people that she's randomly accused, such as Josh Hammer, to successfully sue her? And I think, because you mentioned reputational harm, I think there's definitely room to say everybody that's been listed so far has been reputationally harmed. I feel like I've been reputationally harmed, right? Everybody's been reputationally harmed by some of the shenanigans that she's posted out here, whether they're true or false, whether she really believed them or she's just being hyperbole. I think it's fair to say that to some degree, shape, or form. And I'm concerned that she is so slippery that with the defamation laws in the U.S., she may be able to get away with her slander. What do you think about, let's just use what she said about TPUSA, of course, insinuating that they were in on the deletion of Charlie Kirk. They are covering it up, that they're a godforsaken company, that people should stop donating to them. Lots of things that ruin the reputation of a business, of an entity like TPUSA. How do you feel about that?
So when it comes to like defamation law, I think some states actually do treat it differently on whether a business can recover for defamation versus an individual human being. And so first things first, whatever state TPUSA decides that they want to file a lawsuit in, they've got to ensure that businesses can recover under defamation law, and that right's not just
Mm.
available to individual human beings. When we look back on the Dominion voting systems, in the election where Tucker Carlson discussed how there was a conspiracy of foreign governments about this Dominion voting system. Dominion actually brought a lawsuit, and it ultimately settled. So it never reached a judgment or anything of that nature. But that's an example of a business bringing a suit. And when it comes to trying to predict, is a lawsuit going to be successful? I mean, nothing's even been filed. We haven't gathered any evidence. So, lawyers, we're not permitted to provide guarantees generally under our ethical rules. And so trying to guarantee the success of a case is not, something that really good lawyers do, because it's kind of professionally, wrongful to, or not professionally ethical to do. So I can't really predict the success. However, as I mentioned earlier, if they feel they meet all the elements of a defamation claim, speak to a lawyer. And if you're willing to maybe pay an attorney's fee or retainer fee, or take the case on contingency, well, you might have a case.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, on behalf of everybody, Nick, I blame Law and Order and every cop show, every law show, because they get done with this so fast, man. It's so fast. When I found out just how long lawsuits take and court cases take, I can't even watch Law and Order anymore. As much as I love it, I can't watch it anymore, because I'm like, there's no way that you resolve this matter in 46 minutes. It's just not going to happen. Like, no, stop it. No.
Absolutely. I've actually said the same thing. And just kind of picking up on that topic, something I've thought about in my own time. I'm an attorney, and there's a lot of technological advances that have been made in the last couple of years, especially with regard to AI. And so for judges that actually refuse to get with the times and learn how to use AI better in order to expedite their docket cases, I find those judges to be somewhat rather disappointing and violating typically their own judicial codes on how to act as judges. And so, I think judges have an obligation in the interest of justice and fairness to people to get these cases moving. Try to bring justice as quickly as possible, because I think that frustrates a lot of people in our society, is just the sheer length of time to bring a lawsuit. And then when you have a lawsuit, the stress that's involved. So I think lawyers and judges have to do a better job at making sure these cases get processed quicker. And I do think with technology advancements, that's a reasonable possibility to occur.
No, I got you. I was going to make a joke. I remember when my wife and I used to watch Law and Order all the time. We used to do the marathons all the time. And I remember in the early years of Law and Order, they used to actually have, when they would go, cut scenes, they would say, like, they would give you the dates. I noticed that they used to give you the date, like January 5th, 2023. And notice now in the newer Law and Order, 'cause she still watches it, in the new Law and Order and SVU, they don't give you the dates, because I think because they were really messing those numbers up and really causing people duress. Like, wait, this is going to take 2 years? Oh man, 2 years to get the law. Again, we were talking before we came on the YSL trial here in Atlanta. It took them a year to select a jury. So I mean, that was crazy. That was insane. So and it was a total of like 2.5 years. That's crazy. That's the longest case ever in Georgia history. And then they actually got nothing out of it. Nothing at all. Okay, let's talk about it, Nick. Talking about discovery, and we're not talking about the Starship Discovery. What is the realistic discovery for Candace and the Macrones? And I'm going to start this again. What discovery tools would realistically be available to Candace and to the Macrones if this case survives the motion to dismiss?
Yeah, great question. So discovery tools are generally governed by state law. So each, litigant has to look to their own state law. As we know, this case is being litigated in Delaware State Court. And so we have to look to the Delaware State discovery rules. Now, generally, when we're speaking of discovery rules, a lot of these it's kind of like, you're a mechanic and you open up the car hood, and some of it might be a little different, but a lot of it's functioning the same. So we can kind of look at it that way. There's going to be interrogatories. So you get to ask written questions to the other side and have those responses written down under oath. And it just typically narrows the case in certain ways that the litigants would like. There's going to be requests for admissions, which are, written requests to the other side to admit or deny facts. And those are also the responses under oath. We have requests for production of documents, which are, written requests for the production of particular documents, just as it sounds, and the responses are under oath. We have depositions. So, you literally orally examine certain individuals or parties in the case to learn, information or documents or evidence they have to try to build a case. There's subpoenas.
I know you liked that episode. This is actually a clip from a larger live stream. The link is down in the description, so you can go check it out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you down there. Grace and peace.